Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Ralf Friedrichs. I'm an addiction recovery coach, a life coach, and host of this show, to Take Your Life Back Today radio show. You can see a video version on this if you go to YouTube and go to channel Take Your Life Back Today show, or just type in my name, Ralf Friedrichs. This whole week, I've been doing short inspirational stories that are powerful to hear. My friends, the great thing about them is that they are so easy to digest, and there's always some sort of moral at the end of the story on most of them. Whether they are true stories or not is another thing, as many of them are legends supposedly hundreds of years old. Friends, however, the stories that I am talking about are so powerful and inspiration that many of them really do get you thinking and even leave you speechless at times. I've been studying up plenty of these short stories in the past couple of months and found the lessons behind them truly wonderful. So I've decided to put them on video, highlighting the most inspirational short stories I could find that I've ever heard. Helena Hovitz survived 9/11. These are 15 questions young people asked her about the survival. 12-year-old at the time of the attack, the author survived, and so did her family. But as the days continued, she saw her neighborhood covered in smog and debris and filled with flyers of people who lost loved ones amid continued threats of more attacks and building collapses. She realized 9/11 was just beginning. Friends, that morning, she says, I was 12 years old, sitting in school 3 blocks away from the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001, when the planes hit the Twin Towers. Our teachers had us all gather in the cafeteria. I remember parents rushing in to pull out their children amid the chaos. I began panicking, wondering how would I get home to my apartment building on the other side of the towers where my elderly grandparents also lived. Then my neighbor and her 13-year-old son appeared in the doorway, arriving late for the day after an appointment to walk me home. We left just minutes before the first tower collapsed. What we ran from, saw and heard and smelled and experienced as we pushed through the crowds and ran for our lives from the collapsing towers. The first, then the second, as we tried to get home with police stopping us at every way in the bloody, ash-covered bodies running past us, has become common knowledge in the past decade. But it's very different to live through it in real time as a child with no idea if we would be killed in an instant. What was going to happen next made us all think, and if the world was going to end before I could see my family again and say goodbye. Friends, she says I survived, but that morning was just the beginning of my trauma. In 2016, I wrote a book after 9/11 about my experience and that of over a dozen of my former classmates. I began to receive emails from children across the country asking me questions and telling me their feelings about that particular day. I started video chatting with them in their classrooms as well. These are questions I'm asked most frequently, along with my heartfelt answers. What was your first reaction when the plane hit the first tower? Well, she answers, when the first plane hit and we felt the impact in our classroom, my first reaction was surprise, because I didn't know what was going on. That was very quickly led to fear and panic as we did learn what had happened. So I would say I was nervous, scared, and shocked. Those feelings amplified as I tried to walk home with my neighbors, and more surprising things happened, like the police not letting us get even get home. Though we were told we told them that we lived there because they were told to direct everyone to go uptown out of harm's way. The next question was, what happened to your classmates whose parents weren't able to come to get them? She answers, these classmates were evacuated, which means the bomb squad let them out of the building and uptown away from the towers, but they were also in a street close by when the towers began to fall, so they all had to run as well. Those students were taken to another school where they waited for their parents to pick them up. Once their parents were able to figure out where they were, they came and got them. Some of the kids who lived in the Battery Park or Tribeca lost their homes for about 6 months and had to live moving from hotel to hotel. The next question is, what did you feel when you knew all your family members were okay? Good question, she says. After a night of anxious waiting, my dad finally made it home the next morning, covered in thick film of debris, dust, and sweat. I was relieved when I knew all my family members were okay. I was very lucky because so many children could not say the same, which is very, very sad. To tell you the truth, I still worry about my family members even after I knew they were okay, because I was anxious about what would happen next, and there were threats of additional attacks, because I had thought I would die without ever getting to see them again. Going to school and leaving them again was hard almost every day after, and as a teenager, I had a very hard time worrying that I would lose people I cared about most. Next question was, what happened the next day and in the days after the collapse of the towers? As days turned into weeks, we only had the food and medication my father helped coordinate from New York Downtown Hospital across the street. The National Guard posted up in our neighborhood. There were Humvees and rifles, and the sound of planes sent me into hysterical panic each and every time. People randomly ran down the street running and screaming and crying, and we kept hearing we might have to evacuate again, that another building might fall, that more bomb threats were coming in. I wasn't sleeping, and when I did, I had nightmares and flashbacks, feeling like I just wanted to die. While it seemed like the rest of New York City above Canal Street and the rest of the world resumed life as normal, everything, and I mean everything, had stopped in our neighborhood, including many cars, subways, or buses being allowed into the area. The power kept going in and out, debris was everywhere, phone lines worked erratically, all of the stores we normally go for food or necessities were closed down, and we didn't have school for 2 weeks. Don't miss these triumphs and tragedies of military family. How long did the haze from the smoke in Manhattan stay? Someone asked. The haze stayed in our neighborhood for a very, very long time. 6 months later, there was still debris in the air and black smog. The air quality was very dangerous for a long time, but many people, including my family, didn't leave because they didn't have anywhere else to go. You can hear the story of 9/11 first responders who were speaking out after breathing in the toxic air at Ground Zero, resulting in health issues on the internet. Next question was, what would you tell people who have disorders because of 9/11 or traumatic or any other traumatic events? Well, certain people, she says, spoke publicly about how New Yorkers and Americans will not be changed or deterred. The aftermath is a very real thing, no matter how brave we all want to be. Being brave and carrying on with our lives doesn't mean that we can't still worry about the safety of our loved ones and our community. The symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorders can be complex, and they can sometimes take years, even decades, to surface. But if you notice that something isn't right, I would suggest finding a therapist to talk to who specializes in trauma and PTSD. Don't be afraid to reach out. These are the 10 silent signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. Uh, and you could find them somewhere on Google. How did you ever stop thinking about it? Someone asked. Unfortunately, the big trauma was so big and ongoing that it was hard for me for a very long time, and I think it was difficult for my parents and so many families that lived in the area as well. When we survive something and try to move forward, that doesn't always automatically mean that we really have moved forward. We are changed, and our lives are changed. I don't think I'll ever forget to ever stop thinking about it, but I've learned to move forward with the thoughts I do have in a way that makes my life a lot easier. I have personally been able to get better and use my experience and to help other people, especially young people, and to bring hopeful stories into the world when there is so much bad news and bad things happening. I still do not understand why the terrorists would do such a horrible thing. Do you ever go back to that day and wonder why it happened? Someone asked. Well, we do in fact know why, to some extent. The people behind the attacks did what they did, but that doesn't make it any less sad or scary. Sometimes bad things happen, and we will never really know why they do. I wish I could understand it more, she says. But what is important to remember is that for all of the suffering out there, so many people, so many good people also exist who step in to help and try to make the world a better place. We have to be strong, she writes, as we can be and be good people in the world ourselves. We need to make differences in the world. That these terrorist attacks have helped me and other people to be better. You went through an awful event at such a young age. How was your life affected throughout the years after, someone asked? For a long time, she writes, many of my thoughts were scary and sad. A lot of the things I thought and the way my body and brain kicked into survival mode, that particular day stayed with me for a long, long time. Fortunately, now, as a 30-year-old woman with my own family and a happy life, I look back and see the ways that the years of hard work to make changes and get better in therapy has helped me become a new person with a new life, but without forgetting what I went through to get to this point. One more question. Have you ever felt mistrust for Muslims because of the attack? Well, she answers, right after the attacks, especially as kids, but adults too, we're being told by the media who the bad guys were, what they looked like, and to be on the lookout for people who looked like them, along with any suspicious activity. Fortunately, I had a wonderful humanities teacher who taught me early on one small group of people do not represent an entire race or religion, and that these people who chose to do something as horrible as 9/11 were not doing it in the name of any and all of them. People of all races, ages, religions, and walks of life have the ability to do bad things and good things as well. So I've learned to not judge. Folks, this was 9/11 that happened many years ago, and these questions were from students all over the country to Helena. Call me at 844-405-HELP. Together we can help each other take our lives back. Be good to yourselves and always be good to each other. And remember, a simple smile to a total stranger can help that stranger for the rest of his or her life, and it can change your life. She survived 9/11, go to school a couple doors away from the towers, and she bounced back. This goes to show you there's hope for all of us. No matter how bad your struggles are, we will all become stronger through our struggles. May God bless each and every one of you, and we will talk to you guys. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take good care. Bye-bye now.